Hello everybody and welcome to the Whiskey Dictionary. Today is July 10th, and what that marks is the beginning of Signet Week for the Glenmorangie Distillery. Now, what does that mean? You may have never heard of it, but the Signet is a very special bottle of whiskey that Glenmorangie makes. And so what they do is they shut down their normal distillation for an entire week, and they do nothing but distill Glenmorangie Signet. And this is a very special whiskey, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about it in a little bit, but I do just want to mention that usually I go over the distillery in the first video from any brand that I do, but I'm going to put that off for another video because I really want to focus on this particular whiskey. So shutting down your distillery and completely switching things up when you've got a massive distillery like the Glenmorangie Distillery is no small feat, and it's actually an extremely rare occurrence across any of the larger distilleries. So what do they do? Well, one of the biggest things that they do is they make chocolate malt. And if you've never heard of this, basically what they do is they take malted barley and then they toast it. And they really, it's almost like toasting coffee beans. You really just kind of get rid of all of the stuff that would produce sugars to allow for fermentation, but it darkens the actual malt. And when you use that within your whiskey, it actually darkens the color of your whiskey ultimately. So it's a pretty cool thing. It also, obviously based off the name, gives kind of a mocha chocolatey aroma in the air, and apparently the whole distillery smells like this for a week. So let's open up this box because this is a really, really cool bottle. But I'm gonna start even with the box. So this box is wood, and it is heavy, right? So it's got the Signet on the front, which I'll go over that in another video. That's based off of a marking that they found on a rock, and it's actually a cool story. So once you open up the box, you've got the Signet in there. Now this bottle itself weighs, I didn't weigh it officially, but I'm gonna say this bottle weighs at least 5 pounds. It is super, super heavy, and it's got a couple of cool characteristics to it. So first off, the number one thing that you'll notice, and I'll try to hold this up for you guys, is the color difference. So it's in the bottle. It's not necessarily the whiskey. The whiskey is dark, but it doesn't change color across the bottle. Obviously, it's not gonna hold something like that. So it starts kind of clear and then goes really dark. But if you were to take off the cap here, the top, this thing weighs about 1 pound. This is like, you could kill somebody with this thing. It's awesome. And then it's all metal too. And this thing right here, it's kind of like a sleeve almost that goes around the bottle. It's also metal. Like, everything about this bottle is just cool. It's one of the few at this price range, and it's about $200 now, but one of the few bottles at this price range where you really start to get like all the niceties that they'll, where they start making the bottle part of the art. So let's go ahead and close that up. I will be pouring that in just a sec. But anyway, just a really cool thing. Actually, when I got this bottle and the box, I went around to a bunch of people and just kind of showed it to them. I was like, I don't think I've ever gotten anything like this before. All right, so this is specially crafted, obviously. The bottle is not the only special thing about this. It's like hand-selected bourbon barrels that they end up aging this in. They also have sherry butts, and it's kind of gets a little bit of a spicy note from some of the virgin oak that sorry, not virgin oak, virgin charred barrels, like before first fill bourbon barrel. And I guess it would be first fill. Anyway, so it ends up getting a lot of different characteristics from all the different types of barrels that it spent some time in. And this thing ends up being mixed with some of the older Glenmorangie stock. So it is technically a blend, but it's a blend of Glenmorangie's stuff. So technically it can also be considered a single malt, and in fact it is a single malt. So let's go ahead into the nosing and the tasting of this, because it's something that I'm just even gonna tell you right away. Like, if you ever see this, if you get nothing else out of this video, if you ever see this bottle and you've got the money to drop on it, even if you don't, it could be something that you can consider like saving a couple weeks for. They're not gonna fly off the shelves just because they are expensive. This is something that you should find your way to having at some point during your whiskey journey. So as you can see, the color is pretty dark, and it's, a lot of that comes from the chocolate malt, but also, I mean, it's mixed with things all the way up to like 30-year-old. So it's got some color from that. As far as the nose goes, let's go ahead and give this a nose. One of the best noses that I've ever had. Everything about this is great, and I'm totally just going to gush from this point on. So if you don't want to see that, I totally understand. But you know, I want to do a formal review of this anyway. So as far as the nose goes, one of the first things that I picked out is, you know, coffee, which shouldn't be much of a surprise. You do have that mocha coming from the chocolate malt, sorry. But it's also got some creaminess coming from the bourbon barrel. And because of that, the first thing that I got was almost like coffee ice cream or coffee milk. And just something I don't think I've smelled in a whiskey before. So I've got, you know, coffee, cream, there's some cinnamon coming out of here as well. There's some dark chocolate for sure. And then one of the things that also kind of struck me is, like, with the combination of the chocolate and the coffee, it almost is like a tiramisu. You throw some of that cream in there, and if you ever notice this, you will hopefully pick that out too. That was something that it didn't even take a whole lot of effort to put that one together. And to that effect, I know I've done a couple of videos before where I talk about how to nose whiskey. One thing that whiskey reviewers will do is, if you smell something like apples and cinnamon, you start thinking, okay, apple cinnamon, right? And then you start thinking, what could apple cinnamon be? Like an apple pie. Things like that. If you mix coffee and cream and, you know, chocolate, like, okay, those three ingredients are in a tiramisu. So something to consider when you're writing down your own notes. Anyway, let's go ahead and give this a taste. And if you have a bottle of this at home, please tell me what you've got. Tell me what you taste, what you smell, all that stuff. And you are a lucky person if you've got a bottle of this at home. So cheers. So one of the first things that you'll get, or that I get, I should say, is dark chocolate. It tastes like almost a salted chocolate, like you know those like more expensive chocolate bars that you can buy? They're like high cacao, and sometimes they got like sea salt on it. For me, that's got a little bit of this, but then there's this whole fruit thing going on too, where I picked out apricot and not fruit, but you've got butterscotch, there's vanilla, there's almond, there's oranges. There's so much stuff going on in this whiskey. You could sit with this whiskey for like an hour and just sit there and take sips, and I bet you would pick out new stuff like every couple sips. And in fact, that's exactly what happened to me when I was sitting on the couch back there and making my notes. So let's talk about what this whiskey is as far as my overall review. I will say that I was given a sample of this bottle from Glenmorangie. Always got to tell you guys that because I should. That means nothing in this instance. This is one of the best whiskeys I've ever had. I can only match it with a $600 bottle of whiskey that I have sitting on my shelf as far as special, you know, something that really, you can tell that they cared and that this matters. And this is a whiskey that at about $200, I'm not gonna lie, I mean, it's expensive. It's 46% though. At $200, this is something that you need to make time. You need to fit it into your budget and get a bottle of this. So that is my total recommendation. Obviously, I'm not gonna give it a stock it because, you know, money, but this is a buy it, find it and buy it. So, all right. That does it for this episode of the Whiskey Dictionary. There'll be another episode coming tomorrow on Kikori. So I've got probably 3 episodes coming out this week, so it's going to be a pretty special week. And have a great rest of your night. Cheers. Hello everybody, and welcome to the Whiskey Dictionary. So today is January, no it's not. 3, 2, 1, go. Stop making and distilling their Glenmorangie.